It is now official. Jacob Zuma, once regarded as one of South Africa's most influential and charismatic political figures, now owes the state nearly $29 million. But this is not money linked to tenders, political donations, or development projects. This is money that was siphoned from the public purse to fund Zuma's personal legal battles. Battles fought to protect himself against charges of fraud, corruption, and racketeering that stretched back more than 2 decades all the way to the notorious 1999 arms deal. The Gauteng High Court, in a ruling delivered with clear authority, has made it plain Zuma must repay every cent of the R28.9 million along with interest. This is not just a legal ruling. It is an unprecedented moment of accountability in a country long marred by political patronage and the misuse of public resources. The irony of the situation is stark. Jacob Zuma, a man who once projected himself as a champion of ordinary South Africans, now faces the courts to answer for money he spent on shielding himself from justice. Money that came directly from the taxpayers he claimed to serve. For years, ordinary citizens endured unemployment, unreliable electricity, collapsing infrastructure, and rising living costs. Meanwhile, Zuma waged legal campaigns at the nation's expense, filing appeals, delaying proceedings, and exhausting every procedural avenue available to him. Every obstruction, every postponement, every attempt to delay accountability was funded by the very people he claimed to represent. This week, the matter reached a dramatic turning point. Judge Anthony Miller of the Gauteng High Court in Pretoria delivered a ruling that left no room for ambiguity. Zuma is required to repay $28.9 million to the state attorney with interest accruing on the sum from the dates the amounts were first demanded. The court's judgment brings closure to a long, bitter struggle between the former president, the presidency, and opposition parties such as the Democratic Alliance, DA, and the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, who have long campaigned for the recovery of public funds misused to finance Zuma's defense. The ruling underscores a simple principle. Public money is not a personal slush fund, and even the most powerful politicians are accountable for their misuse of it. To grasp the full magnitude of this judgment, one must revisit the history leading to it. Years ago, the government formally informed Zuma that he needed to reimburse the cost of his legal defense. These were costs the state was never meant to bear. Instead of compliance, Zuma offered silence, no repayment, no acknowledgement, no engagement. His refusal left the presidency and the state attorney with no choice but to return to the courts not to argue principle but simply to recover the funds. His legal arguments that charges against him were linked to his official duties and that the state was therefore obligated to cover his fees had already been dismissed decisively in 2021 by the Supreme Court of Appeal. That judgment firmly stated that Zuma had no right to state-funded legal representation for personal corruption cases. This week's ruling, therefore, is more than just another judicial setback. It is the formal repudiation of Zuma's long-standing insistence the taxpayers should fund his personal defense. The financial figures in question are substantial. The Gauteng High Court detailed that the R28.9 million owed comprises 2 separate sums. The first R18.2 million was demanded in October 2021, followed by an additional R10.7 million. Interest occurs on both amounts from the original dates of demand. The practical implication is clear. The longer Zuma delays repayment, the more the debt grows. Every passing day adds financial weight to the obligation. Yet, this is not simply about numbers. It is about accountability, a concept Zuma has resisted for years, using every legal tactic imaginable to postpone consequences for his alleged misconduct. The response from the Democratic Alliance has been swift and emphatic. DA spokesperson Will OPM emphasized that the ruling is not a political victory but a win for South African taxpayers who have borne the financial burden of Zuma's court battles for years. OPM highlighted that Zuma had benefited from nearly $29 million in public funds over the past 7 years while ordinary South Africans struggled to make ends meet. The DA has further called for Zuma to settle the debt within 60 days, warning that should he fail to comply, the state must recover the funds by attaching his property, including his presidential pension. The notion of seizing Zuma's pension is significant. The pension is funded by taxpayers to support former leaders in retirement, Yet, it could now serve to reimburse them for money spent on defending a former president accused of serious crimes. Symbolically, this would represent a reclamation of public resources and a rare moment of justice in the fight against corruption. The Jacob Zuma Foundation, represented through spokesperson Zanele Money, responded cautiously. The foundation indicated that it would need to consult Zuma's legal team before offering any formal comment. Behind this measured statement, however, lies the unvarnished reality: Zuma's legal options are running out. He no longer commands a loyal cabinet to protect him, nor does he have allies in key state institutions shielding him from accountability. This is no longer a matter of political influence or public opinion. It is the law demanding repayment, and it is unwavering. To understand the gravity of the situation, one must trace Zuma's legal troubles back to the late 1990s. He was accused of accepting bribes from French arms manufacturer Thales during the controversial arms procurement deal, with allegations that he provided political protection in return. These charges shadowed him throughout his presidency and beyond. Over decades, Zuma relied on every procedural tool available to avoid facing trial. From the infamous spy tape saga to the Nkandla scandal, and even to his refusal to appear before the Zondo Commission, Zuma repeatedly positioned himself as a victim of political conspiracies, claiming persecution by enemies attempting to silence him. Yet this latest ruling is distinct. It is about repayment of money, not political maneuvering. There is no pretense of conspiracy here. The law has asked for funds wrongly used, and Zuma cannot claim victimhood in this context. Judge Miller's judgment was deliberately clear and dispassionate. He emphasized that the state's demands were legitimate, and that Zuma's lack of engagement was equally evident. In plain terms, the order is simple: repay the money with interest. Furthermore, the judge mandated progress reports to the court, ensuring that the public will remain informed about whether Zuma fulfills his obligations. The irony is difficult to overlook. Jacob Zuma, once the man who claimed the ANC would govern South Africa until Jesus returned, is now subject to the authority of the judiciary he sought to undermine. The same leader who could unilaterally reshuffle cabinets or dismiss finance ministers now cannot evade a debt established by the courts. While he still retains the loyalty of certain supporters, largely from his political offshoot, the Young Wisuzwe Party, this ruling shatters the perception of his untouchability. The broader significance of this ruling extends far beyond Zuma himself. For decades, South Africans have endured the consequences of corruption, mismanagement, and political cronyism. Every delayed trial, every case of public money misused, and every instance of accountability evaded has had real consequences for citizens: deteriorating services, unreliable energy, and rising economic hardship. The R28.9 million that Zuma owes is more than a financial figure. It is a symbol of all these failures. It represents the personal gain extracted at the public's expense, the abuse of power, and the erosion of trust in state institutions. What is remarkable about this moment is that justice, after so many years of delays and obstruction, has acted decisively. South Africa's judiciary has demonstrated that even the most powerful political figures are not immune to the law. The ruling also sends a strong message to other leaders and officials. Misuse of public resources carries consequences. Accountability, once a distant promise, is becoming tangible. Should Zuma repay the funds, it will mark a rare instance in which the public can see a direct corrective action against corruption. A small but meaningful step toward restoring faith in the institutions designed to protect citizens and uphold fairness. Jacob Zuma's legacy is a complex tapestry. Once a liberation icon and a symbol of resistance against apartheid, his later years in power have been overshadowed by allegations of corruption, manipulation, and self-interest. His tenure exemplifies the dangers of unchecked political authority, while this latest ruling illustrates the power of law and institutional accountability to counterbalance such authority. While Zuma's political narrative has often centered around his portrayal as a champion of the oppressed, the R28.9 million he owes underscores a more sobering reality. Public office is a responsibility, not a personal benefit. South Africa's path toward recovery from decades of corruption and state capture is long and difficult. But this judgment represents a milestone. It reinforces the principle that no one, no matter their former office, charisma, or political influence, is above the law. It also highlights the importance of active citizenship and opposition oversight. The DA's persistence combined with a judiciary willing to enforce the law has made this accountability possible. Whether Zuma ultimately repays the debt or further delays prolong the matter, the court has established a precedent that misuse of public funds will not go unchecked. In conclusion, the story of Jacob Zuma and the R28.9 million owed to the state is more than a tale of financial reckoning. It is a narrative about accountability, justice, and the enduring struggle between power and principle in South African politics. For years, Zuma supporters and detractors alike have watched as legal maneuvers and political strategy obscured the truth. Now, the truth has been laid bare. Public money spent for personal gain must be repaid. The judgment is a testament to the resilience of the legal system and a reminder that the principles of fairness and justice can prevail even against formidable political figures. Whether Zuma will comply or continue to challenge the ruling, South Africans have witnessed a rare moment where the law has acted decisively. The R28.9 million is more than a debt. It is a symbol of accountability, a reckoning with decades of alleged corruption, and a tangible step toward reclaiming public resources. It is a moment that may not erase the past, but it signals a willingness to confront it. In a country still grappling with the consequences of state capture and corruption, that truth matters deeply. South Africa cannot rebuild or heal until every individual, regardless of their status, answers for the misuse of the nation's wealth. If Zuma pays what he owes, it may be a small gesture, but it would represent a meaningful stride toward justice finally served.